Hello and welcome back to the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike and Laurent. It is Tuesday, a rare Tuesday show, June 1st. In this episode, we welcome new friends to the Premier League. Chelsea are once again European champions. But first, Laurent, now we both know the pain of a Champions League final loss. How are you feeling? How are you coping?
I'm okay. I spent the game at the Bluefoot pub. Shout out to the San Diego supporters group and the team there. I sat right at the front of the bar. I stayed keto, drank a vodka and seltzer water or soda, whatever the hell they call it here. And it was intense. It was hard. And, City really were never in the game, to be honest. Werner missed shots early. Things were a mess right away. You could tell. I watch City, you guys know, all the time, every time, as much as possible. And the fact is, Chelsea were better. Chelsea had the better of the good chances early. They got their goal a couple minutes before halftime. And all we could think as City fans was, where the fuck is Fernandinho? And where the fuck is Rodri? And where the fuck is the team that we played all year? We were so afraid of Pep's Achilles heel, there's no better way to put it, of wanting to tinker at the end. The last game, he'll do something weird. He'll play somebody out of position. So this time it was, okay, Gundogan, you can be at the base of the midfield and defend everyone, and we'll just put all our attackers on. I don't want to not have Silva. I want to have Sterling too. Sterling, who's been out of form for months, been part of the second team with Aguero, Jesus, and the rest of the strikers.
Yeah.
And then De Bruyne being in a weird spot, and Chelsea were just great. And Foden was in a weird spot. He was in the middle. So I think one of the overall theme was, yes, when the lineup came out, I was like, okay, Pep must know what he's doing. We'll do these guys. But then you start to think through it, and as the game is going on, you're like, there's 5 guys playing in a spot they haven't played all year. Foden's in the middle. De Bruyne's at the 9. Gundogan's way at the base of midfield. Bernardo's over here. Mahrez and Sterling are there, but they haven't played together for ages. Things are just disjointed. Conte literally took Phil Foden and said, "You're gone. I'm not dealing with you." And I think, Tuchel rightly identified. And again, Conte is he's a fucking wizard. He's a destroyer. He's a 5'5" destroyer, pygmy warrior of death. And if he was 6'8", it would make sense. But he's 5'5". He wins headers. He just stopped everything from happening. And then Werner, as much as he gets a lot of shit, and he did miss 2 massive chances, he was a part of the goal. He took Diaz the other way, left Zinchenko on his own to track Havertz, and Havertz came to life. He's this kind of slip of a player who shows up when he shows up. He took the goal well. I mean, Ederson, you could argue, had he stayed in goal, he might have. Had he not stayed in goal, they would have been a handball because he touched the ball out of the box. But that's his style. It doesn't matter, right?
That's his style. He's the sweeper keeper, right?
And then second half, you thought that Pep might just go, okay, let's just go back to where we're supposed to go. And when he did finally bring on Fernandinho, things did look a little better, and Foden did get on the ball. And there were some half chances here or there. With luck, we could have been at 1-1, especially on the Mahrez volley very late. But Aguero came on. He didn't do much, didn't really have a chance. De Bruyne got knocked into next week to the point that he broke his whole face. He got his nose and his eye socket broken. He may miss the Euros because Rudiger just annihilated him. But City deserved to lose. And I think that was the easier part of feeling it. What's frustrating is it's one thing to go down. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to lose with regret. Like, just play the fucking team. We all could draw it up. We all could do Foden, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Silva, Gundogan, Fernandinho/Rodri, Zinchenko,
And then the back four.
Diaz, Stones, Walker. Or even to change it up, like Chelsea aren't attacking. Take Walker off. Put in Cancelo just to get creativity going. Like, this is a guy who for 3/4 of the season was the most innovative right back in the league. And he just kind of decides, no, I'll just go Sterling. So it was very weird. It was really frustrating. And listen, Chelsea are deserved champions. They did what they've been doing all year. I think Tuchel recognized in his team it wasn't quite there yet. He recognized its qualities in Jorginho as the holding midfielder who you can just give the ball to and he moves it around and keeps things going. And Conte as this defensive shield beyond comprehension. Like, we laud goal scorers, we laud Messi, we laud Ronaldo. Those guys are great, De Bruyne. But I think if there's a yin and a yang to football, which there is, there's possession football, the dark arts, whatever. Conte and this Chelsea team were the best version of football you can play without the ball. They were the opposite team. They would shadow you. They did good possession, but it wasn't what they wanted to do. What they wanted to do was let you have the ball and they would kick your ass. So they're like they're the opposite of City in a way. It was like the best version of Mourinho. It was Porto 2004. It was that type of team versus the light football, the beautiful game, the Brazilian, the possession, the Dutch, the Church of Barcelona, and it won. And it does win. And that's the thing. You don't want the dark arts to win, but they did. And Rudiger and weirdly Christensen, how the fuck that little wisp of a play.
There's a lot of twists and turns storyline, right? So from the neutral perspective, that 45 minutes to start the game was breathless. It was unbelievable from both sides. I wouldn't call myself necessarily a neutral. I hate Chelsea and I wanted you to win. So I was firmly in the City bandwagon camp. But and by the way, I am really happy that regardless of the outcome, that you got to go to hang out with the San Diego citizens.
Yeah, that was good.
And be a part of that group, because I was in it work for the New York Spurs for a while, and it's really, really fun. In fact, it's the 2-year anniversary of the Champions League final from the Liverpool Spurs game. But that I remember that day, which by the way, we all remember abruptly ended about 45 seconds into the game. But the game started at 3 o'clock. We got there at like 10:30 in the morning. It was like a rave in that bar, and people who I know who I've become friends with over time, being able to experience win, loss, or whatever happened that day with these people. It was sort of my coming of age as Spurs supporter. I remember that. So when I saw that you got it to the bar,
it was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was sad. But one of the things that I'm taking out of it is, and one of the things this is a sort of larger, a zoom out thing that is somewhat lost in American sports a little bit, is the idea of building with a group, of going through pain as a group. It's very rare in football that you just put your team together and go win. You got to build, and it takes damage, and it takes scars, and it takes the same guys growing together. If we go back to say, you go back to Klopp's Liverpool in the beginning. They had 2 seasons where they were all over the place. And the first season was one, they barely made it. He takes over in October from Rodgers. They finish 6th, but they have a good run to the Europa. Then the next year they finish top 4, but Salah goes nuts and they're a high scoring, crazy team. They make the final of the EFL of the Champions League. Then the next year they push City harder. They basically kill City by pushing him to the edge. And the 98-point season, then they had 97, and then they'd have the breakthrough, right? But they win the Champions League, then they win. So that's a 3 or 4 season cycle where you're growing and pushing and taking hard, deep fucking losses, right? Then I think of the 2013 San Antonio Spurs. They lose in Game 7 to the Heat, and they come back hungry for one last fucking go with like, we're going to annihilate these teams. And they do make it all the way to the finals, and they annihilated the Heat. I don't know if you remember this, but they go on another level. They go like they're playing basketball no one's seen for 30 years. So you have this build, this attack, this sort of growth. And I'm just kind of taking this City loss as like, We made it past one rung. We got past PSG. We got past our quarterfinal and semifinal hoodoo, and we made it to the final. And Pep has to learn. Trust the fucking girl who took you to the party, or whatever the fucking saying is. And that's just what I'm taking from it, right? Like, if we can lose in the final, we're growing. Like, I talked to a Chelsea guy today. He was like, they lost 2 finals and they lost on heartbreak. And when we do win, and it might be a shit version of it, it might be not Guardiola. It might be, it might be our Roberto Di Matteo and going and bunkering in and beating Barcelona 1-0 away in one of the greatest, most disgusting anti-football performances of all time against the greatest team of all time. But to have that win happen, it's going to mean something. Like, for City fans, we were in the Champions League like the fucking Beverly Hillbillies. Like, oh, we got oil. This is weird. What? We're supposed to be excited about this, and we really don't care. We're just like, well, we're not in the championship. I guess let's beat United. Yeah, we won the league. Oh, Champions League, I'm supposed to give a shit? Yeah, whatever. But now we're getting the scars, and we're just like, hey, that fucking sucked. I want to win this fucking thing now. And losing to Spurs on a fucking VAR and missing penalties and Lyon and Monaco on a 6-6 fucking away goals loss. All those things are just building the scar tissue and building the fucking pressure of just like, we're going to go win this thing and it's going to fucking matter. And
on that note, I remember seeing, it's not even regardless of sport.
And another building team, Pochettino building Spurs. That's another.
I know. Well, hopefully they'll be building back, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But and on another, I think there's somebody on, who did Tampa Bay beat in the Super Bowl this year? Whoever the other team was. There's a player who was watching the celebrations.
Oh, Kansas City,
right outside.
They had just won
on the other side, and the they had just won. Fine, so that's not the greatest example, but I've seen this in a number of ways, right? Where like one guy sitting on the watching it, right? And so I do that with the Yankees, and whenever my teams lose, I watch the other teams celebrate. Like, yeah, and because Jessica looks at me, she's like, "Are you okay? Are you a fucking sociopath?" I'm like, "Well, that it's probably a panel that should discuss that." But realistically, what I'm doing is saying, no, I want to soak this in right now. I want to remember this pain, because when we win, it's going to feel that much sweeter and that much better, right? So
yeah, and yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, and speaking of building, we'll talk about another team that built straight towards the Premier League that we've talked about a bunch. But first, we want to take care of paying the bills here and do this little live read courtesy of Chop Sports Podcast Network. And speaking of saving money on bills, our friend Joe at Attitude of Gratitude Consulting has a very unique way to save you plenty of cash on your monthly bills. Visit www.attitudeofgratitudeconsulting.com for more info. And we'll make sure that you guys go to Attitude of Gratitude Consulting. They're going to help you with your bills. We're excited to be part of the Chop Network. That was our first ad read. And you know what? It's in the flow. It's in the moment. Next time it'll be better.
It feels good. It's going to be better right now, because I mean, when we record right now, you guys are listening to this next day, a few days afterwards. It's 10 p.m. East Coast. I am in a furious shedding for the wedding sort of diet, and I hate myself more than anything. So I think about food late night more than anything. So I mean, we love snacking at the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast, and man, we received our shipment of some of the seasonings that Sunflower Meadow Seasonings gave to us. I mean, I'm trying my best to keep my fingers out of this thing, but it's really, really difficult. And I keep telling my fiance, Jessica, it's all you right now. I can't touch it because it's unbelievable. The brand new cheddar beer dip exclusively made for the Chop Sports Network. They gave us some of that. Jesus Christ, you're going to kill me. I got to fit into a suit. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You have to try it. Do us a favor. Mention Chop Sports when you talk to Jess. Funny that we also, another Jess, and save some absolute green there, okay? Visit www.sunflowermeadowseasoning.com for their entire line. Back to the game. Again,
Brentford.
From the neutral perspective, pretty frenetic pace. Sterling, by the way, Ederson drops a dime like he's Aaron Rodgers on Sterling's foot. Bad touch, doesn't get that. So it was ticky-tack back and forth for a while there. You mentioned the Werner missed chances. And then Thiago Silva goes down, tries to soldier through it, and he can't and he's got to come off. And I'm thinking Kurt Zuma's coming in, and that's not the case, right?
No,
So
they go with
Christensen, he comes in off the bench, and I go, well, this has to be advantage City, has to be. And he was fantastic. I couldn't believe that. Granted, he was sheltered very much by Conte. I mean, who covered the play. He had some like Darrell Revis kind of coverage, right? It was one of those where like Conte Island, if you will.
So much stuff that didn't happen because he was there. Do you know he won the most headers challenged? How the fuck
That's
did he
the crazy
that?
thing. He also, and I think like 25 minutes had gone by, and he the header for a shot. It went high and wide, and whatever. It was challenged by, I think, it doesn't matter who. But so a City player had challenged it. I think it was Zinchenko. And so but a 5'5" crazy bald man wins a header and gets an attacking opportunity. It was absolutely wild. He was everywhere. And speaking of Conte, the goal, my takeaway from the goal, and we talked about Fernandinho not being there, that pass from Mount hits him in the shin if he's there, right? Like that's where exactly he would be. And so that's kind of the thing that going away from that first half, I was like,
it's just instinct. It's playing where you're familiar. Why is Pep putting guys in places they haven't gone? I mean, the stat that I shared with you was this: City have played 61 games this season. And in only 2 of those games have Fernandinho or Rodri not played central defensive midfielder. One against Olympiacos when it was a dead rubber, and the Champions League final. It's absurd. It's madness. Like, I don't know what Pep was thinking. I don't know. I mean, and we just have to give credit to Tuchel. I mean, the guy took over Frank Lampard's team and completely made it something else that could not be beaten. Do you know this story? They gave up more goals to West Brom than in the entire Champions League.
Which
is insane.
I believe that. Now, hold on a second. Their path to the final was not exactly
Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid.
Real Madrid was you said two episodes ago. That was the worst Real Madrid team in 10 years.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure. So
Atletico was an impressive win. Yeah,
and Dortmund.
That's what I'm saying. Dortmund. I would have rathered Chelsea's path to the final. And if you go back to their group stage, they basically were playing the top softball team of Champions League teams 3 times. So
yeah, but I mean, the group stage in the Champions League doesn't really mean anything. Except
very rarely, unless you get a group of death. But so I'm trying so hard at anything I can.
They deserved it. They deserved it. They did.
No, they did. They did. They were the better team on the day. And
the only weird performance they had was that little blip towards the back of the season and the Porto game, which they lost, even though it didn't matter.
Yeah. And then so after halftime, I want to talk about the Rudiger challenge because it changed for me, it ended the game. And I think, I don't know if it was worthy of a red. I think it was worthy of a VAR review, like without question.
Yeah.
They didn't even look. And
the thing was that his arms were down. He just gave him
but he lowered the shoulder
he nailed it.
He was Chris Pronger.
Yeah.
That was like Pronger on Korea level shit.
Yeah, but it was blind, right? Like De Bruyne takes the ball, turns, and his face is immediately shivved by this chiseled African German who just destroys his whole face.
Yeah.
He smashes his head on the ground.
Him up.
Yeah.
And so that's 65 or so minutes in, and
it's over.
That shocked the shit out of Chelsea. I'm sorry, out of City.
Yeah, because, they were in shell shock. Yeah, I agree.
The thing that it actually reminded me a lot. You mentioned the Real Madrid Liverpool final a few years ago, the Salah injury. It reminded me a lot of that.
Clearly hurt badly, and it means everything. I mean, De Bruyne. At first, I thought, as usual, it was Zinchenko. I was like, oh, who cares? Because they always look the same. You're like, whatever, Zinchenko.
They do, and they both 17,
right, and
11.
Right? But then he pops up, and you're like, oh, he's fucked up really badly.
Yeah.
Like he's
like it was one of those where like he was crying when he realized he had to come off, but it was one of those the impact of the hit welled up his eyes. Right, yeah, it was like boxing.
Yeah, he was really fucked up, really badly. He's gonna miss the Euro.
So I know.
Belgium keeps thinking they're gonna win things, but they're not.
And Roberto Martinez was in studio, the Belgium coach, and he's like, "What the fuck, man? You just KO'd my best player." This is bullshit. So, I mean, like I said, I'm going to bang the table and say that should have been a red card. I think it should have been looked at as a possible red card at minimum, and it wasn't. And that's something that changes the game right there, frankly. And honestly, I would say City without, at that point, kind of in that shell shock state versus a 10-man Chelsea, there's no guarantee they tie the game. But I think that would actually be a more fair fight, to be honest. You know?
It was rough. But again, City just didn't create anything. Had they gotten a 1-1 draw and gone to extra time, it would have been harsh on Chelsea. I mean, to be fair, Chelsea didn't really create anything in the second half.
No, they didn't want to.
No, they didn't care. But to have the confidence to know.
Wait. Yes, they did. The great American hope missed the chance to ice the game.
Yeah.
Christian Pulisic, right? So,
I'm like,
fuck him. But
by then I had my head on the bar. I was like, we're done. We got nothing.
Yeah. And then just as all who had entered here abandoned hope, Mahrez with the little dink flink from 20 yards. That, I mean, it looked closer on the replay than it did in real time.
Yeah.
And it, again, reminded me of the Spurs-Liverpool game, of super footnote of that game, same as Mahrez, the Eriksen chance in just before extra time.
Yeah.
That Alisson made a phenomenal save on. That goes in on a lot of goalies, and it's 1-1.
There was one Mendy moment that I thought about that I was like, oh, that's a goal, any other goalkeeper. It's Aguero is on the right side, on the left side of the goal. He's in the Silva spot, the Silva office, and he chips it over the top. And this Gabi's there, Jesus is there, but Mendy's 6'7", he just grabs it. I was like, that's any goalkeeper. Like, that was the moment. I was like, any goalkeeper. He's probably one of 3 guys who gets that ball, right?
Yeah.
And it looked easy because he's gigantic,
right?
But like, I think about, a guy like Jordan Pickford, no problem. Gonna be the goalkeeper for England. Kepa would have never been even close to that. He would have been ducked down. It would have went under his legs. But the fact that, I think Aguero just had in his head the math of like, there's no way he's gonna get that thing. It was like 7 feet in the air, and he just grabbed it. So it was just like, fuck. But there was like half a handful of moments like that. I think Foden in the second half was a little bit better. He tried to take the game on, but Conte ate him.
Yeah, he had 1 or 2 chances. And the thing about, I want to highlight Phil Foden again. I love him. You love him. I love him for different reasons. He's one of my, I've traded up for him in the first round this year. I fucking love Phil Foden in fantasy. But he looked like he was trying to be De Bruyne when he left, right? He had the most.
But that was his role. That's what he should have been doing.
No, I get it. But like, everybody it was like watching like The Rookie in like a cop drama when like the captain is like gets shot and everybody's like, oh, what the fuck are we going to do now? And it's like, here comes the kid. All right, get him in there. Go get him to fucking throw some shit at them. Like, he was trying to galvanize the squad, and that hurt my heart to see him fail doing that.
Yeah.
Not that this was on him by any stretch of the imagination, but we both have a lot of Phil Foden love on this show. So
it's just we just have to, and then after that I have to. So part of the narrative is after that I came home, I took it easy, and then I went to the San Diego Loyal game at the Jenny Craig Pavilion. USL. I'm serious. That's the name of where the stadium is, the Torero.
I believe
Stadium.
it. That's funny to me.
And it was fun. I went with my best friend Nancy. We had a good time. We had dinner. I saw goals scored live by a real team with real fans and ultras. And I was reminded about the greatness of football. Just, it was super fucking fun and breathless live in, if the MLS is the equal to Division 1 in England, this is the National League. This is as low as it goes. Right. It's the best professional league we have, but that's not MLS. And it's, Landon Donovan's team. He wasn't there. That's why we won, because he got suspended. So that was great. And that sort of picked up my whole week. I was like, And then I watched my friend, the best City YouTuber, esteemed company, Stephen McInerney, who, really summed it up as a guy from Manchester, as a guy who was able to be on the ground and be at the game and really give the feeling. And a lot of stuff I said was what he said, but just to give, like, he was, to give the father and son piece, right? Like where he watched the game with his dad, and his dad is an usher at the Etihad, and they talk about 99 and all that stuff. So to get that long-term perspective. But he said the same thing I thought, was just like, what the fuck was Pep doing?
Yeah.
But because he could have won. It sucks. Like they could have won, or at least go down the way you're supposed to. Yep. And then the other piece that made me happy was my friends in Brentford.
Yeah. So you were talking about the USL. I think that's a perfect
it's
a perfect segue, right? So I'll let you take the floor here, but let me set it up. The promotion final, the most valuable game in sports,
$215 million.
$250 million in the whole year, in the entire world, the most valuable game, right? So It comes down to third versus sixth, fourth versus fifth. The winners of those play one game at Wembley, and the winner gets the last spot into promotion into the Premier League.
Right. The playoffs are home and away, and then the two if you win on aggregate, then you go play at Wembley, and it goes 3 levels down. The League Two plays at Wembley. There's a National League at Wembley, so the National Stadium becomes where the teams that are still part of the traditional English Football League do their promotion and relegation. If you remember from the Super League, the Premier League is actually a breakaway league that's somewhat still tied. It allows pro rel, but I'm sure if they had their druthers, they'd be like, let's not do that anymore. So Brentford, if we were talking about building, have been building.
Yeah.
They have 3 years of playoff heartbreak in a row. Last season, they should have been an automatic promotion. They missed it. Then in the playoffs, they got beat pretty badly. They just didn't show up. That was with Ollie Watkins and a couple other guys, one at West Ham and one stayed. Anyway, I don't remember the other guy's name, but they played well. They went in. Ivan Toney, who I've been talking about, scored a penalty in the first 10 minutes, and they just dominated your friend's team, Swansea. They just outclassed them. They were just better. Like, in every way, shape, and form. Then Swansea did something stupid, down 2-0. The guy just 2-foots a guy.
There should have been 2 red cards.
Yeah.
In the first half.
Yeah,
and they let them get one.
They do let them play.
And they got one.
They do.
And then they got one in the second half. So as soon as that was over. So it did seem like Swansea were pushing to get back in the game early in the second half. They get the red card, and they're done.
Some version of an IU. I think they're like the killer bees from WWF old school. It was jumping Jim Brunzell or B. Brian Blair. I'm not sure which one it was, but I think it was Jordan. It was Jordan IU or Andre IU. Some IU was there. Yeah. And they just never really had a chance, the Swans. But that's big for them because that's the last year of their parachute payments since they left the Premier League. So they're going to be hurting. Bournemouth will be hurting. They had a chance that Brentford put out. But Brentford have been building and building, like we were talking about, gone through the scars, gone through the pain. They're owned by a super duper, and this team is, you want to talk about analytics up to the gills. They're owned by a professional gambler who is like, you know what, gambling's not that great. I'll just sell all the data on what you need to gamble. So he has an analytics company. He owns Midtjylland, which is in Denmark. So there's a lot of Danish connection to the team, which is secretly German, which is secretly English. So it's all culturally connected. But it's good to see Brentford because they've been building. And when I lived in London many years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, Brentford was the closest to where I lived. And of course, I was told, don't go there, you'll get killed. Because it famously, Griffith Park has a pub in every corner of the stadium built in.
Beautiful.
But, they have a new stadium that their fans have not been in yet, 17,000. And, they're promoted. They're one of these teams. It's getting really weird that there's a lot of well-run, well-intentioned, fiscally sound teams joining a Premier League. You have Norwich that goes up and down, but at least they're like, stay the course. We're doing this the right way. You've got, you've got Brentford, same kind of thing. Aston Villa, very rich owners, have a good team. So somebody really good that we like, an old friend, might drop out. And, you sort of get the sense Newcastle's just hanging on by a fucking thread before someone just really kicks them in the dick. And, a Callum Wilson injury, if one of those, if Maximum or Callum Wilson hadn't come back, they would have gone, right? Those guys got saved. So the teams that are being poorly run but are living on name are really on a thread. And I think Burnley's probably there. I worry for Palace. Palace is really in trouble. Like this managerial appointment is a big deal. And then I think about my guys in Brighton. they're well run, doing the right thing, but they need things to go right. Like they can't lose Basuma and not replace him. And
the thing that I think is that, you have well-intentioned, it's a great way to put it, right? Well-intentioned teams that are joining the league and raising the bar,
the floor more than anything,
raising the floor, but also the percentage of teams and the percentage of the amount of play that'll be negative football, like we talked about, the dark arts
a little bit less,
goes down a little bit more every time.
Yep.
And in doing so, is that frankly a way to finish 16th and 17th in the Premier League? Yes, it is, in the old way. But the more it becomes about, no, we're on the front foot, we're going to attack, we're going to go win some games. We talked about it a lot on this show in the first season of the Squeaky Bum Time podcast, that for every time you eke out a draw, if you once every 3 games just muscled out a win, it's the same output.
Yeah, those 3 draws, I'd rather have the win.
Yes, absolutely. So
it's not sabermetric genius, right? It's like, go try and win the fucking game.
Go get 3 points instead of 1.
The irony of that for Brighton was they led the league in draws because they would trying to score goals and give up draws. Right. They had bad draws on the flip side.
Right. Okay. And so
you do need a balance, right? You do need to be able to do both and hang on to things.
But in doing so, you've got, we're worried for Brighton. We should be, because now they're not the only bell at the ball, right? There's a lot of
they're going to be teams that are going to come and play. Yeah, for sure. And I think, and to take a step back, I think it is a 10-year project on the influence of that 2008 to 2012 Barcelona team. It's Pep. It's the level of managerial excellence in the Premier League is so high that guys like Sean Dyche, either they get really good at being defensive,
right,
or they're just going to be left behind, right? You've got the level of play in the Premier League makes the shit teams really good, right? Because if you fuck around, you'll just get beat, right? So they do the league. It's in really good shape. Like I don't see this cycle kind of ending. Like it feels like La Liga has been left behind a little bit. The Bundesliga we talked about with the fucking weird thing where just like, yes, we'll sell your things to fucking Bayern Munich. Why not? You have the money. What are you doing? Right. And then you've got, the French league, which is broken, which isn't broken. It's just has one team that breaks it. Otherwise it's fine. Right. It doesn't have any super teams. It just has PSG.
Yep.
Italy has a bunch of poorly run, ineptly run, running out of money, has very Italian-themed Italian teams doing Italian things.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, you guys are corrupt? Oh, that's weird. I didn't think of that. Italy. So weird. You guys have been corrupt since 420.
Yeah. But we talked a little bit about the bottom half of the table, and with respect to how Chelsea got kicked on in the second half of the season, the Champions League, you can kind of reinvent yourself on the spot, right? That's different. It's a different animal.
You have a lot of time to work. Yeah.
You have a lot of time to work, and you don't have to play games and results in and out. And so looking at the top of the table, it also reflects, right? Like, so City, Liverpool, Leicester City, all in the top 5. West Ham went after it this year. Conversely, Chelsea, who did have that ascension towards the end of the season, struggled mightily to get in 4th place. We talked about it a lot a few weeks ago. Spurs, top of the table on Christmas, scratch and claw to finish 7th in the Europa Conference League spot, whatever the fuck that still means.
Enjoy.
And so that's that's the difference, is that it's the trickle down effect from the top on down. It's not just we're trying to keep our heads above water here, like the Wolves and the Villas and whatever. Leeds, like we talked about, comes in 9th.
So good,
right? So
good.
There's a lot.
They're gonna get plucked though. They're gonna have to rely on Bielsa doing something
certainly,
magic
but
again.
I'm not talking about them specifically. What I'm saying in the greater scheme of things, they are a cog in the machine that is a well-oiled machine that is moving aggressively forward, and with them is the tide. Whereas the Burnleys, the Newcastles, they have a decision to make. Basically, they have an identity crisis at their fingertips. Burnley's not going to change. Newcastle, when they fire Steve Bruce, maybe they'll change. I don't know, but it's a question of, if you are going to be a negative football team, you better be, you better be fucking good at it, you better be Simeone. You better be Right.
You better have Unai Emery back there. You better have you better have Rafa Benitez. You better have like I know what I'm doing, but I also know we still play football. You can't just be hoofing it and kicking guys in the teeth.
Right.
The league is, we're losing West Brom and Sheffield, super defensive teams, especially under Allardyce. And we're getting Norwich, who we saw just get the doors blown off them, but played every.
They didn't stop.
Right. And we're getting Brentford, who's a team that wants to play too. And, we're getting Watford, who I think will probably be more pragmatic. But when they sit back, City blows them out. They scored, I think, 15 goals in the 2 games.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So and that's really the end of the season. And now we sort of transition into international tournaments. I think there's some South American jazz going on. There's player movement. There's the English national team squad, the French national team squad. I mean, we'll watch movement. It. We'll be into it. Already movement. Sergio Aguero kicking a ball in a Barcelona shirt was too.
That's strange. I didn't like it.
It was way it was way too soon. I'm like, that's totally a makeup call. Like, hey, you could have just kept Luis Suarez and won the fucking league. You guys. He has a bad knee. Guess what? So does Sergio Aguero. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like
let's do a quick roundabout on the coaching carousel because there was news today. So the latest was that Real Madrid had lost Zidane, and Inter had lost Antonio Conte. Both are free agents. Both still are free agents, but the Real Madrid job has been taken by Everton's or formerly Everton's Carlo Ancelotti. He jumped ship from Merseyside. He's going back to Madrid.
Can you imagine? You finished 10th at Everton and you get to go back to Real. What? Everton's laughing. They're like, "What? Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
He said, "You know what? This shit's too hard."
He literally did. And so that makes Everton an interesting
spot for my guy Potter. Come on.
I actually said that today. I said that to my brother. And I think that would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what they do and what direction they go in.
Everton is one of these weird clubs that's kind of it's big. It's just part of the narrative. They've never been relegated. They're part of the Premier League. They're just part of the show. They're talking Gerrard. There's no way Gerrard can.
Oh God,
he won't do it.
But
it is Liverpool. Hey, listen, fuck it.
Oh man.
Hey, Jamie Carragher was a Everton fan. He played for Liverpool for 18 years. It can be.
Yeah. But on that scale is a little different, I think. I like Nuno Espirito Santo for that job.
For that role, yeah,
great. I've heard he's talking to Crystal Palace.
I think he wants to go home. I think he's done.
Portugal.
Yeah. Because I think the pandemic thing is just like dudes haven't been home at all.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think there's that. Yeah, I mean, the Wolves job is an interesting job. I'd like to see a younger sort of sprightly guy. I don't know who goes there.
Everton job, not Wolves. Oh wait, Wolves also. Sorry, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Wolves, Crystal Palace. So let's see. Let's go from top to bottom. Yeah, it's Everton, Wolves, Crystal Palace are the only and Spurs are the ones that are open. Yeah, Spurs. I didn't even think about Spurs. Well,
I try not to.
There's news.
Well, there's sort of news.
You willed it to happen.
I have been just willing it into existence and speaking it into the world. I was watching my friend Chris Cowan, who's one of the big Tottenham YouTubers. He had Fabrizio Romano on his show this afternoon, and he gave a lot of insight. Eric Ten Hag probably not likely to be really considered. Conte is a thought, but it's less likely that he would succeed at Spurs given the financial limitations for one reason or another. But it's funny that like the way that they kind of modeled the shall we say searching candidate profile, they basically drew a silhouette of Mauricio Pochettino and said, okay, let's go get a guy like that. And then they're like, let's give him a call. Let's just make sure that we can rule him out before we do anything. And so effectively Pochettino is not getting on swimmingly in Paris. And the rumor is effectively they're going to make him be the bad guy and say, listen, I want to leave. And there are conflicting reports that say he has gone ahead and done that. PSG have refuted it. But the way that I read it is PSG are refuting it so that he has to come out and audibly say for everyone to hear, I'm going back I'm going back to North London. He still has a house. He actually lives in North London right now in the off season. So he was living in a hotel the whole time in Paris.
Yeah, isn't his boy at Watford?
His son, yes, his son is at
Yeah.
Watford. His son was at the Spurs Youth Academy. He left to go to Watford after he left. But yeah, so that's the interesting thing, that there is a lot of hope. There are still a lot of obstacles and hurdles in the way. So we'll see. But yeah,
I think it would be
fingers and toes
I mean,
crossed.
it's a great narrative to spin for the news people to sell stories.
It's a get out of jail free card for Levy for now. But the thing is, it has to be different. It has to change.
Yeah, they can't roll back. They can't have transfer windows with no players.
Yeah. So, and I don't expect them to do that. He said foolishly, but
the thing is, though,
if
if Levy is smart and he can convince whoever the fucking guy in the Cayman Islands is like, if there was ever a season to get deals that you could flip later, it's this season.
Yeah.
If someone says to you, here's a loan for $150 million, you'll get it back. I promise. This is the season to grab players on the cheap, because you're going to get guys for 70 cents on the dollar. Like a Romelu Lukaku, the wheels are going to turn and he's going to be $40 million or maybe.
Yeah. Well, maybe, but nonetheless, I don't disagree with that at all. And I don't even think he would have that much problem getting the funds, whether it be through auxiliary player sales. They're going to sell Sissoko. They're going to sell maybe Toby. They're maybe going to sell Eric Dyer.
They're not going to get shit for those guys.
No, they'll get $50 million between the three of them. I promise. Okay. And so that's Mr. Sissoko's in the French squad. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, but the point is, you're going to be able to have what they operate on and have operated on for a while is more or less a net even transaction, right? So if you're gonna spend 60, you're gonna sell and reacquire 50, 55, and you'll come out basically out of the wash even. The problem I have is, and I've said it on the show before, is who are you going to buy, right? That's the problem. The player recruitment has long been the problem at Spurs, and
you get the wrong guys.
As much as the money. Yeah. So that's my issue. I mean, we paid more for Moussa Sissoko than Chelsea did for N'Golo Kante.
Well,
what the fuck?
Because everyone did, right? The story of Wenger,
but he came off of the last season.
Wenger buying Granit Xhaka instead of N'Golo Kante. It's a classic behavioral economics problem. Here's a tiny little guy who doesn't talk, who's 5'5" and literally looks like a pygmy, who, if it was in the 50s, they'd have him in a grass skirt with a bone in his nose carrying things for the expedition of Mr. Leakey, and they wouldn't really have to do anything. He would just be the guy carrying a fucking the packs. He literally looks like that. And that's like, if his teeth were sharpened, I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm making more stereotypes than I can possibly dig out of. But he does look like that. But he's incredible. And a last point on Kante is, one of the guys on the podcast I listened to was just like, his personality reflects how he plays. Like, you can't do what he does without having that kind of like super duper sacrificial, quiet, I just do what I do, right? Because another player wants to be on the ball and have the glory. And he's just like, nope, I'm just going to do everything that you can do the best without actually having the ball. And he's okay on the ball, right? He does carry the ball forward. He makes the right passes. He's not like, if you remember, Makaleli, who would just annihilate people and then just kick the ball 5 yards.
Makaleli.
He literally created a role. It's Conte's role, the Makaleli role. But he would just annihilate someone and just push it off to the side, right? You can't get away with that anymore. You've got to be able to be more dynamic. So then you have these two types. You've got the Rodri type, who's more slick on the ball, but not as brutal. Then you've got like super duper brutal fucking Lee Cattermole destroyers of souls. Xhaka, but he sucks. He's not even good at it.
He sucks. He just gets red cards instead of being good.
And then you have this perfect mix of this tiny little bundle of happy joy of N'Golo Kante. They're going to win the fucking Euro. And everyone's going to talk about, oh, Pogba is great. When everyone who knows football is like, it's Kante. Kante is why they can win. Kante is why Pogba's fine with France, because he can fuck up and
he allows
try and
him
do it.
to do what he wants.
Right. Oh, he did his Cruyff turn and he lost it. Oh, but Conte was right behind him to steal the ball back. Oh, well, there you go. Whereas in Man United, that happens and the guys are breaking the other way and Pogba's jogging back going, damn, what happened there? Anyway, was there anything else we needed to talk about? We talked about Brentford. We talked about managers. We talked about City. We're going to go to once a week and we got to
figure out what we're going to do. Yeah, we got to figure out what we're going to do for the offseason. We're going to change some things up. Yeah. We appreciate everybody joining our Facebook group. We love all of you very much. Yeah, and talk to us. Tell us what you want to know because we're happy to change things up. We're going to be on the fly this summer, trying some new things. And then when the new season gets back into play, we're going to do a legit season preview. And that's going to kick off the actual in earnest, I think, season 2 of the Squeaky Bum Time podcast. And there's going to be some segments, some running jokes and running things. And so we learned a hell of a lot the past, almost 9 months or so. And so we're going to take all of those learnings, all of that experience that we've got, and we're going to make the show a heck of a lot more fun, and inclusive and have everybody involved. And we see you out there and we are enjoying
not woke inclusive, just inclusive.
No, like inclusive, like tell us what you think.
Okay. Not that kind of inclusive.
No, I know we're not doing
diversity. We're not doing diversity flags, are we?
No.
Because it is a podcast. We do have to be middle-class white guys. Otherwise, who does podcasts? Like, what the fucking weird.
All right, take us home, Laurent.
Okay, that was the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast on Champions League final sad day with Mike Salerno and Laurent Cortines. We release episodes on Mondays and Thursdays, except this one is on Tuesday, and we probably won't do one on Thursday. Please rate and review the show on your favorite podcast network, as it makes a huge difference for the show, and we are proud members of the Chop Network. And please join our Facebook group at the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast.